Okay, I've got top of the hour here, and welcome to our first virtual Thursday for emergency reporting for 2017. I hope everyone had a really good Christmas and a New Year starting off right, both personally and professionally for all of you. My name's Tom Lewis. I'll be your trainer for today. We're going to do this for about an hour. We're going to take your questions at the end. And today's topic is all about annual reporting requirements within your organizations and some of our system reports that will help you tell your story to your organization and to the communities that you serve. And so as we go through this today, please chime in with questions and also send over any of your any other reports that you use in the system that maybe I didn't mention today as we go through this that you have found to be very effective, and I'll be sure to pass that on to everyone in attendance. First of all, I just want to make sure, can everyone see my screen and hear me? Just do a quick shout out via the chat window there, and just to let me know that I'm coming through both video and audio. Or better still, if you can't hear me, send the message. Excellent. All right. So far, so good. Hey, I want to shout out to some people. I see some very familiar names of people I've worked with over the years. I've been a trainer with emergency reporting since 2011. I'm retired from my fire department as a battalion chief back in 2013. But I see we've got David Richardson out from Midwest City. He's been extremely helpful to me in recent years with ISO. I know he is the go-to guy for ISO. John Emmon, I see I've worked with him before. Mark Holloman, who is our Pacific Northwest and kind of Rocky Mountain regional sales rep. Mark's awesome. If you guys are lucky enough to have him as your salesperson, I know he takes good care of his customers. Nancy Shane, I got your email today. I will be responding to you hopefully sometime today. So glad you could join us. I see we've got Chief Hines from Fort Bragg. Chief Hines, if it's okay with you, I may want to look into your account and show them some things because you're using the system really strongly. So just send me a quick chat saying that's okay if I could take a peek into your account later on and run some of those system reports, because I know you and I had worked on one before. And then Winfred Melendez, I know we've talked with him. He was out at, and I'm going to forget the name of the camp out in Puerto Rico, the Army base, but I know he was based out there and may still be. So guys, glad to see a lot of familiar Fort Buchanan. That's it. Thanks, Winfred. And so yeah, he's out from our customer in Puerto Rico. So it's really great to have you all today. We're going to cut to the chase here, and really the only thing I need to mention right out of the gate is that if you haven't had a chance to take a look at our next regional training event, it's going to be held in Austin, Texas, from February 28th through March 6th. Did I say March 6th? March 2nd. Hold on, I got to make sure I'm recording this, and I am. Yeah, March 2nd. And so if you click on this link on the sign-in page, the login page, it's going to take you to our Eventbrite site that summarizes the event and allows you to register. So the seats are filling up. We've got allocated 30 seats, and I think we're a third of the way there. So if you have the ability to make it, it would be awesome to have you there. There's going to be 2 trainers there. Some of our Nicole, who you probably work with if you're a new customer to set up training, new customer onboarding, she's going to be there. It's just going to be a great event, and I have never been to Austin, but I hear nothing but good things about it. Mark Holloman, I know, used to live there, so and he loved it. So we're looking forward to having our first event of 2017 in the great city of Austin, Texas. All right, I've got permission today from one of our other power users, and I'll probably go into Fort Bragg's account also, but Lockheed Martin out in Fort Worth, Texas, Chief Stephen Jean, who is also a power user, has given me permission to show a live account. I could show you my demo account, but it's cluttered data, and it's okay. But when you can see data that's being presented from a live account, it has more meaning, and you'll probably get some pretty good ideas as far as ways to use it, increase your use of emergency reporting, and take it to the next level. So let me log in here. And what I'm going to do today is I've got a list that I'm going to share with you guys. I call it a job aid, and it's going to summarize these reports that I'm going to go over. And I'm going to add any ones that you share with me today, but these are some of what I call kind of best practice reports that give you both high and mid-level summaries of your organization's performance throughout the year. And I'm going to kind of go module by module, starting with the daily log today. And so if you're not using these elements of our system, this might prod you into using them more and seeing what you can get out of it. Because I know some of the departments that have just maximized, the modules and using it, they're able to extract some pretty powerful reports. And when we get to the incidents module, there's a report that I worked with Chief Hines out at Fort Bragg that he uses to extract the data from our system. So he's pulling data from our system, and then he does an Excel download and is able to work in a pretty sophisticated spreadsheet to manage the data at even a higher level. So I'll show you that report that we worked on with him, and it's going to look like a lot, but it's a really great report. So we're going to do that today as well. So as you probably are all well aware, to get to reports, you have to go to the reports module. And the reports I'm going to pull out today, the first set are going to be from the daily log. So I'm hoping most of you are using the daily log because it's such an excellent tool for tracking the productivity of your department day in and day out. And as you know, there are 4 things now. There used to be just 3. There are 4 things that automatically populate. So let me back up for just a second. There are 4 things that automatically populate in the daily log. Okay. We know there's incidents. Okay, so whenever there's an incident, and they haven't had any today, so let's go back a day. So whenever there's an incident, it will automatically populate in the system, and it looks like they may not have had an incident yesterday, but when you have an incident populate, it gives you a view incident link that will take you directly to that incident. So that's one. The other activity is anything time you complete a training event in the system, it automatically populates in the daily log. The third item is when your prevention department completes an inspection of a building, of a property, it automatically populates in the daily log. And the last one, the brand new one, is when you complete maintenance. That automatically populates in the daily log. Quickly, just to show you, in administration, to set the default codes for those 3 out of those 4 activities are right here. In the administration module, let me back up, I was going too fast. Daily log settings under default activity codes, and then the 4th one is managed under the settings for the occupancy module under inspection types. So let's run some of these reports. First one, and don't worry about writing these down, everybody. I've got that job aid that I'm going to share with you before we wrap up today. So as we move along, it looks like, let me see, I'm probably flying solo here because our trainers, we are growing so fast and doing so many onboard trainings that, hold on, that normally we'd have a couple of us here today. Mark, you're not seeing my screen? Okay, hang on a second. Are you guys still not seeing my screen? Hang on. How about now? I've got the Word document up, you're probably seeing. GoToMeeting should be presenting the correct screen. Just a Word doc in Dropbox. Hang on. Let me flip it and see if it takes the screen. How about now? Sorry, guys. Is that better? Same? Okay, hang on. Try something here. Okay. GoToMeeting's acting up. It's saying that I'm showing the correct screen, and it highlights it, but you guys aren't seeing the right one. Okay, let me do one more last thing because I'm just showing a window. Let's try this real quick. Okay, how about now? Did it go back to the Word doc, or are we on Google Chrome and showing the reports module? Okay, good. All right, a little buggy today with the GoToMeeting. Thanks for your patience, guys. All right, let me back up. And so you guys can see actually what I was talking about. In the daily log, as I mentioned, there are 4 things that auto-populate. And to get them to auto-populate with a specific activity code, it's in the administration module. So these 3 things plus inspections automatically populate in the daily log. So there's 4 things that you do on a daily basis that you don't have to manually enter into the system. All right, so now we're going to go into reports. And I'm going to run, and you guys I'm sure you know this already, but for those that might be new, I'm going to mention that if you found your favorite reports, you can add them to your favorites. Or if you know the doc ID or the report number, you simply type in the report number, and that the first report I want to run is 906. All right. And if you like this report, and each person, I get this a lot when I do the onboardings, the favorites are exclusive to you. It's like your own web browser favorites. When you log in, these favorites are tied just to you as a unique user. And so if these are reports that you run regularly, you definitely want to add them to your favorites. And then when you log in and go to the reports module, all you have to do is click favorites, and it will show you that list of your most frequently used reports. All right, so this report, hours spent per activity code for date range. This is a high-level overview of the hours spent on daily activities, and it summarizes the total time on incidents, training, and inspections. Not specific incidents, just a high-level umbrella set of incidents. So I'm going to run this for 2016 for Lockheed Martin, and you're going to see how it breaks down per activity code. So if you need to report to your agency how much time you're spending on any given activity, and I use Lockheed Martin's because they are very particular and detailed with how they're using activity codes. They have quite a long list, but you can see the time spent in hours, some of those activities that they want to track. Okay, and Lockheed Martin is where they build the F-35. We were fortunate enough to have a regional training event there a couple years ago, and they were just great hosts. So for example, I can see that on inspections for risk reduction, they did 672 of them, spent 1,479 hours, which was 2.83% of the total time for the entire year for the date range that I searched here. Okay, and just giving you some examples of what they're doing. All right, 23,076 items and entries basically with personnel. Total time spent, and that's the total time for the entire year of all the logbook entries made. Okay, and one thing I'm going to show you guys a sneak peek on today, two brand new reports, one of which talks about out of service times and allows you to report on out of service times for apparatus. I always get this question here on these reports. It goes only to 2300, or that's as far as it goes. It's kind of misleading. It encompasses the entire hour all the way to 59 minutes. So if you select this, you are getting a full 24-hour period, all the way from basically midnight to midnight. Okay, I'm going to keep looking. I'll stop periodically just to see if any questions come into play here. So please feel free to shout them out, but I'm just going to show you some examples. And as we go through different modules, if you've got a report that you like, share it with the group, and I'll go ahead and run it here. Another good report, again, taking into consideration annual reporting, is number 1167. This report also pulls from the daily log, but this is pulling in for personnel. So I'm going to just run this for 2017, otherwise it'll be a really long report. And you can see hours spent per activity code per personnel. So what it does is it takes it down by individual, but by activity code. Let me zoom in so you can see that more clearly. Okay, so here we've got ARF standby. So that's the activity. This tells me who did it, how many logbook entries, and how much time each person spent, and gives you a grand total here. So you're taking that 906 report that we just did and going a little deeper and running to find personnel as well. Again, it's sorted by activity code alphabetically, and then gives you an idea of the people that are concentrating on those particular codes. Okay, no questions so far. All right. Next up is another one for the daily log. And I'm a real big fan of our daily log only because of one, you can tie it in with the daily roster and do really nice pass down reports. Because there were times when I was on shift where like, okay, what did we do, in the past 24 hours? You know how that goes. And so I can tie it in with the daily roster and just do a great pass down. Here's who was here, here's who was sick. Oh, and by the way, we did X, Y, and Z throughout the day, and it's a great reference. But I also like it for these reports as well, because it can really tell your story, and it also helps both personnel too with promotions, annual evaluations, things like that. So 1514-1514 is another one. So the example I like here is if I want to, I would use car seat checks, for example, because this is a good place to document it. But let's see, they have a long list. Okay, so PT is a really good one to document in the daily log. So I want to see daily log items per personnel for activity code for personnel. That's a mouthful. A lot of our reports, it's kind of a mouthful, right? But as long as you know the key word here is filter, is for, that means you've got a filter. And filters are great because it allows you to drill down into specifics. So here, I just care about PT. So we want to document how much PT did we do throughout the year. I can go all personnel, or I can pick multiple. And when we have a multi-picker, I can actually cluster these people, select them. Remember, this selection is, say, A shift station 1, and save that, and it appears on my pick lists in the future as a quick pick to auto select these people and run the report for those 4 in this case, and instead of having to go in and pick them multiple each time. But I'm not gonna mess with that account there, and so I'm gonna run it for all personnel. But say I just care. Imagine we go out for the whole year. I'm just gonna do a month here, so we don't have long search times. And so I can see for PT. Now imagine if I ran this for an individual, they'd have their own personalized PT log here, but for the department on an annual report basis, I've got a summary of who did what, when, what they did, who did what, when, yep, I said that, and then how many hours were spent on PT for that time period. Okay, Bill, so what we'll do, Bill's got a question on how do I do a new staff roster. What I will do at the end of the presentation today, a question like that, don't let me forget. I'll stay on afterwards and give you a quick overview on how to set up a new roster. Okay, good question. Okay, moving next. Let's see, yep, that's the 4th one. Let's see, was that 1193? Okay, 1193 is my next one. All right, now this is hours worked per activity code per personnel for date range. So again, I can pick multiple, and I'm going to pick for the month, and I'll just leave it to your imagination to think of an entire year here. But this breaks it down in a unique way as well. It's individualized, but now I take that back. Those first 3 were daily log. This is the daily roster. So these are pulling the codes. So we call them both activity codes. This is from the daily roster. So if you're using the roster to track when people are working overtime, regular work schedule, trades, when they're off sick, vacation, this report will give you that summary. And you can do it for all or groups of people, and it summarizes their total hours worked. Now, those of you that have a full-blown payroll program, you probably aren't necessarily using our roster to track this, but it is something there for you to do if you want to be able to have a nice summary of showing hours worked throughout the year. And these are pulling from the activity codes within the daily roster. Mike goes, can we get a copy of that outline? Yeah, I'm going to share this with you guys when we're done. I call it a job aid. It lists all of the reports I'm talking about, the titles, the IDs, and just a couple bullet points on why they're a good report. So yeah, that'll be coming your way before we wrap up today. Okay, that's for the daily roster. Report number 553 is just probably one of the most classic reports in our system. So if I run it for the year, but I'm going to actually do 2016. This is a breakdown by major incident type for date range. This is one of those you can do pretty much nothing to it. Don't have to take it out to Excel, run it, and be able to show your decision makers and the communities that you serve. Here's what we ran last year. High-level breakdown by major incident type. So the NFIRS categories, 100, 200, 300, 500, 700s, all of those are listed here. So I can see that they ran 303 calls last year in total. This breaks it down by NFIRS type, major incident type, and then I can get more granular here, and it actually breaks it down more specifically by NFIRS incident type. It's just one of those it's simple, but it's just an elegant report in the system. And I'm sure many of you may use that. And that's going to be report number 553. Pressing on to the next one. And guys, please send, if you've got any questions as we're moving through, like I said, I'm doing my best to monitor them as we go. Okay, the next one is 968. Okay, this one is a very strong report. And I'm not sure if Lockheed Martin's doing this, but I know Fort Bragg is, so I may have to go into their account. But this lets you demonstrate to your community. If you're entering this in Basic Info 5, I believe it is. Is it 5? I think so. Basic Info 5 for property losses versus values. So for the year, let's see if they're doing it. They may not. I think I might need to go to Fort Bragg for this one. Yeah, I will. Let me log out real quick, guys, because you need to see this report. Because I know they do a killer job in documenting this, and then they can report it. They have responsibilities to report this to the DoD, but it's also great to tell the local base commander their story as well, or the chief and city town councils, as well as community leaders. So check this out. And Tommy, thanks for letting me use this here. I've looked at this before, and it's just excellent. My mantra is good stuff in gives you good stuff out. So again, this is a training element because it's not a required field within the incident report. So whoever's doing the report or doing the QA on the report, they're going to want to go in there and make sure that this is done. But this is absolutely beautiful. Breaks it out by incident number. Let me zoom in here. Okay, so we've got incident number, pre-incident value, and then estimated losses. And this is an estimate. I mean, I was PIO for my department, and I had to ballpark these. It's hard to do, but you do it the best that you can. But what this tells me is that they had $155 million worth of potential loss based on what was entered into the system, but in reality, they had less than $800,000 worth of actual loss. Those are some outstanding stops when it comes to any kind of incident that you would incur a loss. It doesn't have to be just fire that you report this on. Hey, Tommy, if I unmute your mic, is there any comment you'd like to add about this and how and why you use it? I'm going to put you a little bit on the spot, but I know you might have a good story to tell. So I'll unmute you. If you've got a mic, great. If not, it's okay. Can you hear me, Tommy? Oh, you may not have a mic. No mic. Got it. Okay. You're welcome to put in any comments there that you'd like to share with the group. But I remember seeing this in your account and seeing how someone who's taking the time to really use this. And again, it's a quick report. If the good stuff's going, and you've got this great report to show your decision makers. Okay, next up is going to be, and I'm going to stay here in Fort Bragg for right now. But if you run report 1028, and this is part of a series, this is the NFPA reports, and this is a breakdown of false alarms. Okay, so we know a lot of our agencies run these, and I know DoD runs a lot of these. So this breaks down and it doesn't have the descriptor down at the bottom, but I can tell you that it's only pulling from 700 series calls, and it actually describes incident type 710 to 715, 730 to 739, 40 to 49, 21, and 700. So they run a lot of false calls, but it breaks it down by incident type here, so you can have a nice summary to report to your community and maybe justify a public ed campaign on false alarms. Maybe it's getting to where you're running so many false alarms that it's time to start charging for them after the second or third false alarm. I know some jurisdictions do that. So this one is an NFPA report, part 4 of their reporting, and it's called the breakdown of false alarms. That's report 1028. Next one is 1029. This is intentionally set fires in structures and vehicles. So when you select, you'll notice when you have a fire incident, there is when you select a fire incident on page 2, basic 2 of the incident report, there's a drop down that asks you about if it was an intentionally set fire, and this is only pulling from these types, series 100 to 129. So those are all structure fire, and then these are vehicle fires. They had one of each and an estimated property damage from that fire based on the data entered into the system. And that's if you've selected some of this is one of those reports that I would lie to if I told you that all of our reports have a little description on where the data is being pulled from. So I can see we need to update that there, but it will tell you the criteria that's drawing what parts of the system and what criteria the data is pulling from to populate this report. That's for intentionally set fires. Next up is fire service exposures and injuries. So this one, if you're putting the data in, will be able to show you any exposures or injuries that your crews have sustained. Now, that's if you're documenting it, and when to document that in the incident report, you have to select on basic 2 that there were fire service casualties. Casualties does not mean fatality, it means injury. And then in the NFIRS report, you've got a few pages where you can document the details about that injury, and including the nature. And that's what this report pulls, is the nature. Is anybody out there using this? If you are, put a yes on there, and we can talk a little bit more about it. But it's, again, a pretty good report and can document where you're having injuries in the department. As we know, the vast majority of injuries in the fire service are right here: strains, sprains, and muscular pain. But you can also document needle sticks. This isn't just for fire incidents, by the way. Okay, that covers the key NFPA reports. Going back to fire losses, I want to show you this one other report. This goes into a little more detail than the previous report. This is report number 1238. And what this does that the other report doesn't is it breaks down your losses by incident type, gives you a count, total percent of all incidents in this list. Okay, not all incidents, but incidents that had a loss. Okay, so you can see if you add this up, that does look about right. That's about 47% of all of the count here, if you were to sum it. Total losses, now it doesn't compare how much value there was of the property and contents, but it does give you total losses and the percent of the total. So imagine adding this up and then finding a percentage for each of these line items. So one incident had 62% of your total losses for the year in 2016. Okay, David has a good point. So a lot of our guys had the misconception that casualty equals death. Well, that makes sense, because whenever you hear reports of plane crashes or vehicular crashes on the news, it's always a casualty and it's a fatality. So yeah, you have to teach them that a broken finger is a casualty. That's exactly right. And it's I think our nomenclature there is because of how NFIRS reports that. They call it a casualty, and it encompasses that whole, from fatality all the way down to a cut finger. And so think of that from moving forward, that it's a casualty. It's a casualty, and you'll be able to document this. And if you do it, you're going to get reports that allow you to find out where you're hurting where firefighters are getting hurt, and be able to come up with the preventative measures. And you're backing it up with actual data, not just hunches. So that's good. All right, back into the incidents. 1420 is our next one. Now this, when I run this, guys, you're going to go like, what in the world? There's a lot here. But this is a cool report. And again, I'm going to run it for just 2017, and I've got a filter here by zones. Okay, Fort Bragg kills it with the zones. They can get so granular and find out what their response times are, where the activity that they're doing in any of these zones. A lot of agencies don't need to go this in depth, but they do, because that they can really drill down and pinpoint where they're running traffic in their jurisdiction. But I'm going to run it for all zones, and I want you to see this report. Again, this is report 1420. All right, so what do I have here? What the heck does this all mean? All right, what this is telling me for 2017, these are where I'm running my calls. And if you scroll down to the bottom, okay, only reviewed incidents are included. And the maximum call volumes for each day are in red, and the maximum call volumes for each hour are in blue. Okay, so how does that break down? Let's look at 1 o'clock. So at the 1 o'clock hour, all right, that's a peak hour for 4 days at least. Okay, so if it's red, we know it's going to be blue as well. Well, let me rephrase that. It's going to be blue, but if it's also the peak hour for that day of the week, so I know my peak traffic is coming at 1 o'clock, on Mondays. Okay, part of my peak traffic is Monday at 1 o'clock. Okay, that's where my call volume is the greatest. It's also highest on Mondays at 3 o'clock because I have two of them and every other day is one. Let's stay at 1 o'clock here, 1,300 hours. Looking across here for the day Sunday, that is, I run the most calls on Sundays at the 1 o'clock hour. On Fridays, I run the most calls at both the 1 o'clock and the 3 o'clock hour. That's what this report is telling me. So as you look down in the description here, okay, maximum call volumes for each day is red. Maximum call volumes for each hour is blue. And there'll be multiple blues for the hour because, again, if you're just running one in that time period, and that's the most there is, that's for that time period. So going across the x-axis is hourly. Up and down at y-axis is your day. So I know just by looking at this that my peak volume on Tuesdays is at 9 o'clock throughout the year. And that's looking at the whole year, well, thus far 2017. Let's go with a higher number of calls and let's look at 2016. Good question. Greg's asking, is this report filterable by incident type? Is that what you're asking, Greg? Yeah, currently it's not, but that doesn't mean we can't add a filter here. It would just be something we'd have to get an estimate from our development team. But a filter, because that filter already exists, it would have to be pulled into this report, and it is something we can create. Okay, so here we go. Fort Bragg, 2016. They can pretty much expect that their peak volume on Tuesdays is going to occur at 9 o'clock in the 9 o'clock hour. So they run more traffic, most of their traffic in the mornings throughout the week. Now Saturdays it peaks at 2 o'clock and Sundays it peaks at 7 o'clock. And then over here, total per hour and then the percent of total calls. So what this report does for me, say I'm a chief of the department and I'm deciding, do I want to put an alternate response vehicle on where I'm staffing it with a medic and a firefighter, two people that can run traffic in my response area and not have to take an engine because we're running mostly EMS calls. When would be the time to staff that truck? Well, if I'm in Fort Bragg, I'm looking at the morning for the weekdays for sure, probably from 0700 to maybe noon to get a good chunk of my calls that the engines may not have to run if they're predominantly EMS. So I hope that report makes sense. It looks like a lot, but when you drill down and understand what the colored fields mean, and then move across and see, they run 7% of their calls throughout the year in the morning, and if you add these numbers up, a good chunk, they're pretty close to one another to be sure. There's not a great variance here from 6.9 to 7.22, but at least it gives you an idea of where it reinforces the hunches everybody knows in the department. Yeah, we're busiest in the morning right after shift change, but this backs it up with data, so then decisions can be made not just on hunches, but data. Okay, that's a good one. Next one is one of my favorites, only because this is where you get into all these filters. So you're going to look at the parameters on the left here, and you're going to go, whoa, that's a lot. Well, let's break this down. This is aggregate response time compliance by incident type for response mode and date range. So let's break this down. I'm going to run this for 2016, and my compliance for standards of cover are, let's say, 7 minutes. And all I care about are code 3 calls, so lights and sirens, or actually I really want to pick multiple, right? Because I want to pick lights and sirens, and then anytime I may have upgraded, and maybe I don't, I'm just going to put both of those in there. So initial no lights and sirens, upgraded to lights and sirens. And click OK. That's my filter there. It's showing custom. I can actually save that just like I did before because this is called a multi-picker. All stations, I can pick multiple, but I'm going to go with all because I want to get my whole jurisdiction. All zones. The second due unit on the scene needs to get there in, say, 12 minutes. And this is where, Greg, we would love to get, it sounds like you would like this pick list in that other report. So I'm going to pick multiple, and all I care about are fire calls this time on this report. So I'm going to select all my 100 series, and notice how I have to do this I have to click all these things really fast all the way down to 173, but then I'll save it as NFIRS 100 series. Okay, and then I only have to click once the next time I want to run this report. I'm going to create the report. And we're running a lot of data here, so it's looking for the whole year. So just, you guys, I'm sure, have figured this out, but the longer it takes to run a report, chances are the more data it's crunching and trying to generate. And that actually was pretty quick. Why I like this report so much? Let's just look at my 100 series fires here. Okay, so I've got, let's see, okay, I've got quite a few calls here. This is actually a really good. Holy cow, you guys run some fires. Okay, what I want to do is get to the bottom of the list to show you. Okay, so that's this, and I can show you by looking at just the bottom. Let me zoom out. All right, so we got the whole page there. So what you're looking at is this is the bottom of the section for 111 series calls, 111 series, which are structure fires. So what this is telling me in this first column here, that's my first due compliance, second due, third due, and fourth due apparatus. So actually I thought it was 3, it's 4. So I get 4 apparatus here. So let's look at this call here on Hetzler Street in Fort Bragg, December 22nd, 2016. Engine 1. These are their dispatch times, their incident times, and because my parameters were set at 7 minutes, that apparatus did not make it within 7 minutes. If I changed it to 8, they'd be green. So it gives me a color code to let me know right away if I were in compliance or not. Okay, but my second, third, and fourth due units, they nailed it. They got there in just over 8 minutes, and so they're in compliance. So for this incident, I'm 100%. Now moving down to the bottom of the column here, what this is telling me, and this is an important delineation here, is that on this report, this is 1641. Yep, that's right, David, 1641. So this report, what it's telling me down here is this is compliant calls for 111, okay? So this tells me for the entire incident, I'm compliant on my first due unit 24 out of 77 times. For my second due, I'm compliant 18 out of 28 times. And this is taking, now if I scroll back up, it's going to take into consideration all of these incidents. 17 out of 23 for third due, 14 out of 19 for my fourth due. And then looking at the incident as a whole, okay, that's the incident as a whole. This is per apparatus. So my first due apparatus is getting the 111 calls if I set my standard to 7 minutes, okay, 38% of the time. My second due is getting there 89% of the time, third and fourth due respectively here. So this is the entire call compliance. So 14 out of 19 calls were compliant for all 4 units. This one just looks at each apparatus compliance. So don't think that 14 out of 19 is going to give you the right percentage here. It's looking at this table a little differently. Let's run it for 8 minutes because I think that's actually what theirs is. Okay, David goes, I've noticed only 4 units show in this report. Even though it doesn't show the full complement, does it include it in the calculations? So if a rescue is in the first 4, no water, and battalion chief, yeah, then we're talking accreditation here, right? So this report shows just the first 4 arriving units, regardless of type. Okay, so now I ran it for 8 minutes. Let's go down to the bottom of that section again. For 111, whoops, there it is. Okay, so the compliance is better, 44%. So that's, and what this tells me is the calls. There were 77 calls here where there was a first due. This one, there were 28 calls where there were a second due, 23 where there was a third due, and 19 where there was a fourth due. Okay, because like right here, this call, 8623, there was only 1 apparatus there. Okay, so I know we got about 20 minutes left. This is just one of those really cool reports to me. Other than, like David says, if we could filter by apparatus types, it gives you a really solid overview on how well you're meeting response times with first arriving units. Again, regardless of unit type, it's just taking those first 4. And remember, when you get confused on what this report's doing, just take a look at the descriptor at the bottom of the page. And you all know this, I'm sure, but there's a descriptors here, and then your doc ID is going to be down here. That's the report number. Yep, fifth, sixth, or seventh apparatus should be included for 1710. And we do have our analytics component for actual apparatus types in our analytics section. So for day-to-day, I'm just kind of go focus on reports. But David makes a good point that I could see, again, this looks complicated, but if you just break it down and eat that elephant one bite at a time here, this is a killer report. If we could get more than 4 in here, I think this would be a pretty powerful report for accreditation. Would you guys all agree with that? And if we could find a way to go beyond just 4 apparatus and maybe take the entire assignment, at least the first due assignment, it would be a pretty neat report. It's great as it is, but man, if we got every unit on the scene in this report, I think we're gonna make some people happy. So let me make a note of that one. 1641, all units. Okay, pressing on. Good stuff here. 1645, high level, really fun, high level, tell your story, report incident statistics. I'm going to run it for 2016. Again, it's parsing a lot of data here, so we'll be patient for a couple seconds. I ran it earlier. It'll pull it. It's just taking time. It's such a good report. It's worth waiting for, believe me. There we go. Okay, check this out. So a lot of what these other reports have showed us, this goes high level. Total EMS and fire calls, so 300 series calls, 100 series calls, 8,291 calls of just those categories. That doesn't include false alarms, other calls in the other series. Remember, 300, 100 series. They don't transport, so there's no transports here. Pre-incident value. Remember, we looked at this total of losses. That's what they could have lost. This is what they actually lost. They had carbon monoxide incidents, 17 of them. 682 times they gave aid, 124 times they received it. Overlapping calls. I love this because this demonstrates if you need new stations or staffing or trucks, because this tells me that there were 60% of their calls were run when other calls were going on at the same time. Does that make sense? And then we've got our average response times by station. So you can see where your performances are, or where I bet station 4 has long response times, or they're more remote compared to their response area, or they just have a greater response area. Same with station 8. And then we have got turnout time breakdown. Killer turnout times, nice. Very nice. That's taking a 24-hour period into consideration too. So for EMS, they're killing it, and then for fire, for a 24-hour period, that's good. And then, of course, it gives you agency and how much in an average time you spent on scene. So Fort Bragg, you're nailing it. This looks pretty solid. Tom, anything you'd like to add? Okay, I got 2 more here in incidents. Hang on, 1689. Okay, this is a mouthful too, but incident response and apparatus times for date range, for incident type. So for filter, I can filter by incident type, filter by date range, filter by zone, filter apparatus, filter response mode. Okay, it's a mouthful, but when you see the word for a lot, I'd click into it and see what this can do, because usually it's a great report. Run it for 2017, code 3. Actually, I could probably do 2016, and we're going to take all incident types. That incident statistics report number is 1645, Austin. 161645. And like I said, you'll get this little reference sheet here, job aid, when we wrap up today. It's possible we may go a couple minutes past, so if you're okay with it, stay with me. I've got just a handful more reports to go over, but I think you'll find them pretty worthwhile. We'll let this one run here, and then I know I will show Bill. When we're all done, I'll show Bill how to do a roster, and all of you are welcome to stay if you'd like. But when we wrap up with the talk about the reports, then you can peel off if you need to. Lots of data here, but again, it's so much more meaningful when you can see real data versus just mock data that we put in demo accounts. So I may have to run it for a shorter time, but it's still working. As long as it doesn't lock up or give me the amount of data is too much, it's still pulling it. We'll test our servers today. It renders. Okay, so this is the one we worked on for Fort Bragg. Okay, this is a cool report. And so 1689, again, it's a lot here, but what Tommy does is he takes this out into an Excel spreadsheet, and it's one that he learned through accreditation training, the data analysis class. And so this report works really well for that he can extract it. Even if you don't extract it, you can see a good, I mean, I ran it for a lot of calls, but this is something that you would probably do more on a monthly basis, not so much an annual report, but it's such a good report that I wanted to show it to you because it breaks down the times for an incident, but it also breaks it down for each apparatus, gives you your occupancy ID, incident type, unit, response mode. These are our internal codes for it, but we tell you what those codes are down here. Okay. And so a 390 is going to be lights and sirens. Those are just numeric codes for the wording that we use when we pick the drop down. Okay. We could probably spend an hour talking about how to use this data in this report, but I did want to bring it up as a pretty solid report. Okay, effective response force. Again, this is 1677. And the effective response force, this report took a long time to build. Kim and our support team manager work with the customer on this one, and so this be a paragraph for describing what this actual report does. So we had to narrow it down: effective response force times by incident for date range. So while it doesn't describe the report like our standardized naming of a report, it's a powerful report. But I am going to pare this down to just this year. And what it's going to show me, if I don't change anything here, is this. And I know this will be good. It won't take too long to run because we're just doing it for the month. But imagine a year's worth of data again. Even this is still running. No, it's crunching a lot here because it's looking at so many different fields based on what I decided. But it should, yeah, here we go. Okay, so what does this tell me? The description's down at the bottom. All right, reviewed incidents only, no canceled apparatus. It takes apparatus from the earliest dispatch time. Any apparatus with later dispatch time, so like second alarms, are not included. Talks about what travel time is, what total travel time is. It's the difference. The total travel time is the difference between the apparatus with the earliest en route time and the apparatus that arrived last. That's your total. That is going to be your total travel time. It's calculated from the units that were part of the earliest dispatch time, again, your first alarm. Total response time is the earliest alarm to the last arrival time. Don't worry about trying to remember all that, because if you use this report, just use it as a reference. So let's use that paragraph as a reference. So let's take a look at incident number, and it's only per incident here. So for incident, the first incident of 2017, no losses. The alarm time, 2 people responded. On rescue 1, they were the first and the last unit on the scene. Turned out 1 minute 30 seconds. Call took 8 seconds to process. First unit got there. First unit total response from alarm to on scene 7 minutes 10 seconds. Travel time is from dispatch to on scene, and then the total travel time this tells me when these are the same, it's probably 1 unit that responded. And so the total response effective time was 7:10, which matches the first unit total response time. Remember, that's including the alarm receipt time. So I hope that makes sense. This is from dispatched from en route to on scene. Excuse me, from en route to on scene, and this is from dispatch to on scene. So if I said it incorrectly before, I apologize. Took 8 seconds from the time of alarm receipt to dispatch, and from the time of dispatch to en route was 1 minute and 30 seconds. But I took that for all calls. If I just wanted to do that for my fire calls, then of course this list would compress significantly. Yeah, David, 1677, I think this one would be pretty good for monthly QA, for looking at high level without going in. I still like 1641 because I get to see my individual apparatus, but this gives you basically your first alarm response. To get the effective, your total effective response force on scene. Any other questions on this one? All right, let's go into maintenance next. Report number 600. So which trucks are bleeding us dry because they have so much maintenance costs? Run it for the year. I can do per vehicle. I can group my vehicles by engines, by tenders, by ladder trucks, by support vehicles. I'm going to run them for all. And I can see here that quickly C100, it could be a Chiefs vehicle, but it had 2 repair instances. Who did it? Any maintenance notes? And this is great. And I ran this earlier, and so that's why I'm so happy to see this. They're actually putting in the cost here. So if they're putting in it every time it costs them something, I spent $2,146 on this truck, and I know the DoD, part of their documentation for when trucks get replaced is, I believe, and Tommy can correct me, it's not just out of service times, but when it's starting to cost so much, that's a red flag for potential replacement. Okay, we got an air leak on. Was that crash 2021? If it is, you can see we've got a few things here and what it cost this year. How much time was spent fixing it. If you're putting the data in, again, it's got to be the good stuff that goes in to give you this good stuff coming out. But this is a great annual report for vehicles. And again, I ran them for all. You could run it for per vehicle or groups of vehicles. I love it. It's a good report. Okay. So guys, I'm going to give you a sneak peek of a new report coming out. And you're going to like this. This is report 1700. It was going to be released next week. I can run my apparatus out of service time for apparatus ID for vehicle number or date range. I have to study where the data is being pulled from on this, so I don't know the answer to it, but I should be able to get some data from this demo account. And so if you run 1700 in your search, it'll give you no results yet, but when the system gets updated next week, you're going to have this report. And so I want to see what it's doing here. I can't remember what Bob's a product owner on this. Many of you probably participated in a virtual Thursday with Bob Burton. This is a highly anticipated report by many, not the least of which are our DoD customers. And again, there's no data here, so I can't run it. Let me see, no descriptor yet. Like I said, this is a sneak peek, and I wish I could show you more, but it will show you the date and time, in service date and time. So every time it goes in and out of service, it stamps it, gives you the elapsed out of service time, and then totals it up. That's coming next week. Natalie, if you mean this one, this will be report number 1700. The last report I was on for maintenance history was 600. Okay. All right, so that's a sneak peek of what's coming. There's also another one coming, 1698, which will give you the driver summary report for personnel for date range. Let's see if we've got anything in here. So what does this mean? Now this isn't, I'm going to give you just a sneak peek. This is, well, actually it could be an annual report when you want to document who's driven to the call, who's been the driver for the call. So you'll probably have noticed in an incident report, On Basic 4, where you add people, you can add their role. This report is pulling every time you have someone that you select code 58 driver operator for that call, for drive apparatus. So there we go. So this shows it does a count. Right now it just does a count. So I can see Joseph Banks was on these apparatus, and his role at the scene 3 times was the driver. So it shows you how many times they were that they were assigned, or their role was a driver operator. Okay, look for those two in a couple weeks, and I know I put the 1700 in my document that I gave you, that I will be giving you. Okay, almost there, guys. Thanks for your patience on all this. Okay, occupancy. Oh wow, where does the time get away from me? Okay, so I'm going to do these really fast. 1132, count of occupancies inspected per occupancy type. I just want to see where I've inspected my buildings for the year. This gives it to me. 1132, inspection type and category, basically. Okay, occupancy type per inspection type. So I can see here that I did a fire alarm acceptance inspection in business offices 48 times in 2016. Okay, 1166. This is a high-level OVAP score if you're using our Vision product. I want to see my hazard stats for the zones. And they are using this, and not every one of their structures have been scored, but I can see that in zone 11-10, okay, I have 62 occupancies that are in the moderate score for the OVAP scoring, and that's part of our risk assessment product called Vision, and it breaks it down. Now we have multiple ones. In zone 1-13, I've got significant, moderate, and low. That's the score range. That's how many structures I have. So it lets you see where your highest risk structures are by zone, and allows you to focus efforts in mitigating that. Okay, I'm going to skip a couple just for time. They'll be in the report. I'm going to go to 1329. This one is, if you want to plan for the year, which buildings still need to be pre-planned, this is your report, 1329. It will tell you, and then you can basically take this out, filter it by zone if you wanted to, and assign pre-plans for your companies. These are all the report, all the buildings in your system that do not have a pre-plan associated with them. Okay, now we're going to get into training. A few reports here. Code hour summary per training code for date range. Love, love, love this report. What this is going to do, and again, I'm going to run it since due to time here. This tells me for all of my training codes, that's the 3rd tab in the training module for the settings. For all my training codes, how many hours I spent training in each of those codes. Again, very high level. They've got a lot of codes here, but I can see very quickly that if I wanted to, let me zoom in for you guys. We spent 4 hours on Firestream so far in 2017. We did some forcible door trainer, 21 hours. Again, doesn't tell you who, just tells you what and how much time was spent. This is also high level. 1625. This goes by class category. That's a shorter list, right? That's your first tab in the training settings. I'll run this for the whole year of last year, and this will tell you how many classes you had in those highest level categories. Yeah, that's a quick report. So they have these categories. It tells me we had 23,000 or 2,320 Department of the Army civilian education, of which we had a total of 4,265 man hours, and there's my grand totals for everything for all my class categories. Okay, 19,045 students, or I'm sorry, let's see, I got to make sure on this one. Yeah, total class hours or man hours, and then the count of classes completed for each person who attended. So for each class category. So that's a good high-level report. And I think, let's see if we got any questions. Okay, Tommy, thanks, man. It's good to be back, and thanks for taking time today. He had to take off. We are at the top of the hour, so that actually worked out pretty Darn good. I think I covered them all. So let me share that report. So guys, what you're going to see next you should have a section of your GoToMeeting control panel called handouts. So let me drag and drop this there. I want to make sure you get it. And it's called Annual Reports Job Aid. I am dragging and dropping it, and you should have it. So it just loaded 100%, and you should be able to retrieve that and save it to your local computer. If for some reason you didn't get it, just let me know and I'll email it to you. But that's all the reports I covered today. It's basically a bulleted list by, yeah, well, I'll just show it to you. It's this document right here. Okay, make sure you guys got it. And all I did was really give you the module it pertains to, the doc ID, and the report title. What I'd really appreciate, if you have a report that you really like, that works for you for reporting and telling, really it tells your story to the decision makers in your organization or to your community, send it my way via email. I'll put my email in the chat window here, and just send it to me and I'll add it, we'll add it to the list as a customer's best practice. Let me send that over in my email over here in chat. There's my email. And I think I'll entertain any questions at this time. Well, if I didn't get a message, so that tells me all of you got this document. So if you think of other reports that you just love and work really well for your department, send it my way. And guys are good to go. We're just 1 minute past the hour, so that worked out really well. I want to thank you for participating in our first Virtual Thursday for 2017. And as promised, I'm going to go into my demo account and show Bill how to set up a what were we talking about? Let me go back to his note there. A staff roster, yeah. How to do a daily roster. So Bill, if you want to stick around, everybody else, you're welcome to stay if you'd like. And again, thank you. I wish you a great and very safe 2017, and we'll be back in a couple of weeks with another Virtual Thursday. Yeah, David, we're on those 500 internal server errors. We're getting that. It's a known issue that our IT team's working on right now. We've made some upgrades, and they're doing some tweaks. So I've been getting some of those 500 errors too. Those should be fixed. Those should be fixed very soon. Try report 1031. Sure, yeah. We got one more report. So Bill, hang tight. I'm going to get to you on that roster. So 1031. What's that one? Oh yeah, did I not mention that one? That one actually should be on my list. It's the breakdown of structure fires and other fires and incidents. I knew I missed an NFP report there. That list looked too short. And I'm getting a 500 error. Okay. Is this the one you're getting a 500 error on, David? Yeah. Okay. Let me make a note of that. But I think I missed this report in my list. So add that number, 1031, to that list I gave you guys. And we're getting 500 errors on it. Okay. So this is what we call a broken report, and that's good to know, so we can go and fix it. Great. Yeah, so Winifred's getting it also, which tells me it's a broken report. It's not just slow connectivity on my end or your end. It's a busted report. So I'll generate a ticket on this, and we'll get it through the development to fix. Okay, let me log out here so I don't do any damage in the live account, and we need to go talk about a roster real quick. Thanks for the heads up on that report 1031 there, David and Winifred. Appreciate that. Okay, so rosters. All right, now we don't have time to go in depth, but if you can create your rosters from a shift, it will save you time. And so we've got some knowledge base articles and videos on that. But once you get to the daily roster itself, and again, that allows you to use that one report I showed you, you click on Open Rosters, and I'm going to sort this properly. So I did a test roster back in 2016. I'm going to add a new roster real quick. We're going to call this test for virtual Thursday, 2017, 01/19. Today, tomorrow. And so think of your shifts. So if you're a career department and you do shift change at 0800, you do a 24-hour period here. You can put the officer in charge. You can also assign a shift. Now this shift is just a label. Okay, it doesn't actually have any functionality other than to label it. And besides, I'm a C shifter, so I better put C shift. You can use it for all stations. And then you click next to go to page 2. And you could pre-fill from a shift that you've created, and then boxes automatically check with and populate the personnel based on how you built your shift. But for right now, I'm just going to run it for brush 2 and rescue 1 to keep things simple. All the apparatus based on their station assignment will appear on this list. Click next. And then I don't play on this page. I go out of it and then back in. It's a kind of a clunky workflow, but it actually does the job. And this is where I add people. And you'll notice as I add people here, it takes a little time to do that. If you fill from shift, those people will already be entered into that roster. So I'm going to pick Ryan, and these times will already be filled if you fill from shift. So I'm going to manually enter them. And I could do a project code or position, but we're going to keep it simple. And so now I've got Ryan on Battalion 2. I can add people to the rescue. And again, I want my times. This is where you'll be happy to fill from a roster or fill from a shift, because then you don't have to enter all of this. Okay. And I'll pick his partner. Click save. Okay, so now my roster's done. Okay, for let's say I just worried about the 2 trucks. Where this helps me down the road is here. All right, first and foremost, if I go create an incident, and I'm just gonna cut to the chase and show you this real fast without filling in all the pages. On Basic 4, when I add an apparatus, and if you have a CAD link and you go to this page, it will automatically fill your people too if you've created a roster. So rescue 1, I know it's today. And I'm just going to put into times, fill time. So now that I have an apparatus, a date, and a time, when I click fill from roster, it goes to see if there are people assigned. And remember I just built Dave and Hamani onto rescue 1, and there they are. Same thing applies when you do a daily log entry. When you fill from roster, click submit, it will auto-populate your daily log entry as well. If you have a CAD interface and you come to this page, it'll already look like this with your times populated from CAD, and our system goes, oh, when we get the times from CAD, let's look and see if we have a roster, and if we do, let's populate it, and it does. I know that was fast, but when you say, what do you mean staff roster? Help me understand, Bill. I can unmute you too, Bill. If you got a microphone, I can unmute you. You can just tell me. Let's see, Bill Patton. Okay, Bill, do you have a mic? You might not have a mic. That's okay. Okay, so no, staff roster, no, with a list of my members. So I guess I'm missing, maybe I'm not understanding the question very well on what you need. So not so much like just a general list, like a sign-in sheet? Just an overall roster of your personnel? Is that what you mean? If that's, oh, okay. Yeah, well, geez, I probably went the long way then here. Someone else, Greg, you had a question. I want to show Bill this. You had a question. Are you going to add a find for dates? And that's where are we looking at for that find for dates? Just elaborate a little more while I show him this report. Okay, so if you need just a staff roster, it's going to be under administration bill, and I hope this is what you're looking for. Under personnel, I can do contact lists, and I can get a personal phone and mailing list. I can do it by shift, by rank. I can do it by emergency contact. All active personnel. Sorry, I misunderstood your question. I made it more complicated than it needed to be. Is this what you meant? Just kind of a list of your personnel? Is that what you were looking for? Okay, good. So the place you want to go explore some of these reports here, it's going to be under admin. So when you navigate to reports, as long as you have administrative privileges, you click on administration, click on personnel, and then explore these four to find what you're looking for. That should do it for you. All right, Greg, yeah, so close roster. So going to close rosters. Yeah, so to be able to, because right now, I like what he's saying here, because right now, if I need to find a roster that's closed, I got to navigate page by page to find it. So if I'm understanding you correctly, you'd like to be able to put a find date and take you directly to that date instead of having to scroll through all your closed rosters. Is that right? Oh, Bill, you're welcome. Yeah, no problem. Yeah, that would be a feature request. So I would recommend that you go to our suggest a feature, so from your homepage, and put that in there. It may already be in there. Let's look. Um, to be able to search a daily roster faster. So the keyword is how to improve emergency reporting, and we do roster, and then scroll through this list to see if anybody has put that feature, and if they haven't, you put it in, and then people can vote on it, and that gives a heads up to our product owners to say, hey, this is something that's in demand for our customers are demanding from for the system. So, well, all right. So Bill, thanks. I'm glad I was able. Sorry, I took the long way to get to answer your question, but I hope I was helpful there. And Greg, I hope that addresses your question as well regarding being able to search rosters in the future. And those of you that stayed, thank you very much. And I hope you found this beneficial. You got that document on the different reports, and I'll stay for just a couple more minutes in case there's any lingering questions. But other than that, we'll consider this a very successful first Virtual Thursday of 2017. Thank you, everybody.